We are at the beginning of the 2014-2015 school year. How many are excited? Everybody don't jump at once, because it's going to be a great school year, right? You promise? Going to give it your all. All right. I remember I was in high school, and while my parents always wanted me to do more than what they did, they wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to go on and have a great job, have good credit, do good things in the world. And I said, okay, I'll start looking at schools. And I remember my guidance counselor, and I can't exactly remember the exact grade. It was either 10th grade or 11th grade. And I said, you know what, I'll go to UVA. It's one of the best schools in the state. I had decent grades. I wouldn't say they were like stellar, but good enough, I felt, to get into the university. And that's the first time I ever experienced someone saying, you won't be able to do that. I remember sitting in her office, complexed, thinking, what did she just tell me? I won't be able to do what? It had never crossed my mind, because all my life, my father had raised me to say, you can do whatever you want to do. And it was at that moment that I had to decide, am I going to listen to her, or am I going to keep going? And you know what I did? I kept going. I said, I'm going to fill out my application, I'm going to see if I get in, and then we'll go from there. How many of you have ever had an incident in your life like that? Where somebody said, you can't do it. Somebody said, why are you doing that? Why do you want to go there? Each and every time you encounter, because I promise you, if that's been your only instance, it won't be your last. And every time you encounter it, you have to realize and make a decision, am I going to believe and listen to what they said? Or am I going to believe and listen to what I know has already been placed in my heart? And like you, for me, that was the first of many. And that was the day that, when I look back on it, I realized I decided to start practicing and discovering courage. So I get to college, and I'm at the University of Virginia. My parents had just split up. So by the time I came home for fall break, I didn't go back home to my home. I went back home to where my mom lived. And everyone around me were driving. They were driving Mercedes, Lexuses. I mean, we were 18. And I was walking, catching the bus. We had something called Home Ride from Charlottesville to Hampton, Virginia, that we would take. And when you go pursue the things that you know you're supposed to do, I'm sure you already know by now, it is not going to be easy. A lot of long nights, a lot of trying to figure out how you're going to pay for it, a lot of trying to figure out what's next. I never will forget, I was sitting in my dorm room with friends, and she's sitting there and she's like, oh, I'm down to my last $100. And I'm thinking to myself, did she just say she's down to her last $100? Because I have 10, and I don't get paid for 2 more weeks. That's how my college life was. But it was one of those things that you show up to class day after day, you do your homework night after night, and you keep your goals in front of you month after month, year after year, until finally one day you're walking across the stage and you have the paper, the degree, the certificates that you've been working towards. It doesn't matter your financial situation. It doesn't matter what any guidance counselor or parent or anyone has told you up until this point. Even if it was a parent, you have to be able to learn to figure out what is it going to take in order for you to get to where you want to go. So then it came time for me to graduate. 4 years was great, loved Charlottesville, and then all of a sudden it was just like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I have this degree, but I felt just as lost. I knew I had a degree in psychology, and all of a sudden everyone was like, you need to go to grad school. Go to grad school, Melissa, go to grad school. So I was like, okay, I'll go to grad school. I didn't want to go to grad school. Not at that moment. I eventually did. And so what I did at that moment is I listened to what other people said. And I started working towards a master's degree that I didn't even want. I made good grades, But then I sat there and I would cry writing those papers late at night. I would cry because I didn't want to do it. I was in class at that point, 21 years old, with people that were in their 40s and 50s. They had real jobs, y'all. I didn't. They had real jobs. Had real projects that they were able to apply their schoolwork to. And I was pulling stuff out of the air for my projects. That, again, was a lesson learned for me to realize you have to stick to what you know. You have to stay true to what you realize you're supposed to be doing. A lot of people are going to have thoughts and ideas about what it is that you're supposed to do next. They're going to have thoughts and ideas about how you're supposed to do it and then who you're supposed to do it with. But unless you know that you know that you know, you will listen to that, and then you'll end up in a grad school program crying late at night like I did, tears over, I don't even know if I had a laptop at that time back in those days. Just tears, because it wasn't where I was supposed to be at that moment. So I quit. I left, because that wasn't where I was supposed to be. But in the meantime, I saw people around me, women around me that I looked up to and I admired. They knew things that I didn't know. You were just asked earlier, how many of you have a mentor? And there was probably about a third of the room whose hands went up. Can I tell you that mentors help to change the game of your life? Seriously. To be able to have someone who's gone before you, share their story, impart into you what they've done, where they've been, how they've done it, it's priceless. The opportunity for you to have this afternoon to be a part of a kickoff that your university has thought enough to say, we want to put together a women's network for this group of women is simply amazing. So the next time you come together and that question is asked, all hands should go up. For the simple fact that it's a priceless opportunity. It helps you to prevent mistakes that I made. It helps you to prevent mistakes that they made. It helps you prevent mistakes that your parents and your other peers that have gone before you have made. You need a support system that will lead you and guide you in ways you don't have to figure out all of this by yourself. You don't have to try to figure out what classes do I take next? How do I go and apply for which jobs? How do I negotiate my salary? How do I get into certain industries because my major is this and my background is this and my years of experience is X? Those are the types of things that mentors help you figure out. Those are the types of things that when you have questions, you're like, I have dreamed of this since I was 18 years old. How do I do it? They have answers. And if they don't have answers, they know people who do, right? So I began to see women around me, because I was still lost at this season of my life, in my early 20s, because I had quit grad school. I knew I had an interest at that point in HR. But at the same time, I couldn't figure out, how do I do this? So finally, I started working in my field. Loved people, loved HR, and I started asking questions. Tell me how you know what you know. Tell me how you do what you do. And the right people that have a heart for others will pour into you. They will take the time. They will take you to lunch. They will set up appointments. They will have phone calls with you. The right people that have a heart for others will do that for you. You want to practice courage? You ask. I don't care what their title is. You ask. I used to be so scared of people with titles. Oh my gosh, there goes the dean. Oh my gosh, there goes the professor. Oh my gosh, there goes the assistant professor. Whatever the name is, I used to be nervous, y'all. I did. And it doesn't matter, because once you discover the courage to ask, you'll be surprised. They've been waiting for you to ask those questions. They've been waiting for you to come to them. They've been waiting on you so that way they have more people to be able to pour into. So one young lady that I met, she told me that she went to Regent University. And I said, okay, tell me more about it. And at that point in time, I found out that they had a tuition remission program. I had an interest in business. And so at that season of my life, I was ready to go back to grad school. Not because my mom said, not because anyone else thought I should, but because I was ready. So I did. And it was the best season ever. We had multiple schools. And at that particular time, I went to grad school and had a chance to be able to work full-time, probably for about 3 years. And then I finished my degree. How many of you know sometimes once you finish a thing, you can get very comfortable? Everybody's like, yeah, yep. And so I finished my degree. I was still working there full-time, and I got comfortable because I knew it was time for me to step out and do something else. And that's going to be the same thing for many of you. You probably either have part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and it's going to come a time for you when you're finished with Wake Tech and you have to move on to the next thing, and you say, it's time for me to go. And you can't stay. And so I stayed a little bit too long, but a lot of times things will happen for you. Doors will open, doors will close at the exact right time. So at that particular point in time, the university decided, you know what, we have a school of leadership and a school of business. We're going to combine 2 schools into one. You know what, thank you guys, but not everybody can stay. So I got laid off. But it was okay because I had already finished my degree. I had already probably stayed about 9 months too long, and it was time for me to go. And at that point in time, I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go from here? So I started looking for jobs. And at that particular point, I ended up moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, all by myself. I didn't know anyone. Not one person. There are things that you've been called to do that you will have to figure out. Do I go by myself, or am I going to stay behind where everyone else is? I'd been born and raised in Virginia. I started looking for jobs. When I came across the job description that brought me to Charlotte, North Carolina, I said, oh my gosh, this is my job. And can I tell you one thing? I didn't qualify for it. I didn't qualify for it. I just knew it had my heart. It had everything that I ever wanted to do with leading people, developing teams, working with leaders, everything. And at that point in time, it had, oh, you need 5 to 7 years management experience. I think if I scraped everything up together at that time, I might have had 2. But it was my job. I knew it. I remember going into my boss's office and saying, look at this job description. She said, that's your job. We both knew it. It wasn't about what was on the paper. Do you know that women will look at a job description or something that they apply for, and if they don't meet all of the requirements, won't apply? Won't apply. Men, if they meet 40% of it, they got on their suit, they walking in, they're like, why don't I have the job? You know, you don't have to meet every single requirement. But what you do need to know is who you are and what you bring to the table. And that's what I did. That's what I did. The job description said 5 to 7 years experience, maybe even 3 to 5 years of OD experience. I was fresh out of grad school. I mean, I had some HR background, but it wasn't, every T was not crossed, every I was not dotted as far as my own personal work experience was concerned. I just knew that I had to apply, and I got it. I got it, y'all. And there's something that you're going to come across in your school career, in your professional career, that when you look at it, I don't want you to say, I don't qualify for that. If you meet over half or 3/4 of those requirements, apply for the position. Apply for the internship. Apply for the externship. It's not about what you've done and where you've been. It's about you knowing who you are, that I have this. You have it. You were born with natural skills, gifts, and abilities that no one else has. No one else. No one else. No one else. And so I remember driving down the road. It was a Friday afternoon. My boss said, so you're going for your interview. What are you going to do when you get the job? Now, mind you, I had been applying to all kinds of states. Because I was open to moving, but the thought had never crossed my mind that I would have to leave my family, my friends, my church, everyone that I knew. And so I made a decision that day that, you know what, Melissa, if you get the job, you're going. You're going. And in a matter of about 6 weeks, I moved from Virginia Beach, Virginia, to Charlotte, North Carolina, not knowing anyone. My question to you, rhetorically, is, would you do that? Good. I like y'all. Because so many people tell me, I don't know how you did it. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to do that. But if the opportunity presents itself, please do it. Please go. Go quicker than even what I did. Just go. So here's the kicker. That transition for me was a huge salary jump, a $25,000 salary jump. How many of you guys could use $25,000 right now? Yeah. I was doing the Running Man. I was like, what? Yeah, I was. But let me tell you, that was the biggest mistake in my life, in my career. Because even though it was $25,000, I ended up chasing my salary for the next 10 to 15 years. Because while it was a huge salary jump in that moment, in that transition from what level I was at to the next level, I said yes to the first thing that was offered. I didn't know. I didn't know. I was just so excited over that particular jump in my salary. I didn't know until I got in there and I started working. And I was like, oh, y'all need to pay me more money for this. I did. I didn't know until I got in there and the level of responsibility that was required seemed way more than what I was being paid. I didn't know until somehow or another I found out what some of the new hires and my peers were making. And I was like, but wait a second, what about me? You want to know what about me? Melissa didn't negotiate. Melissa did not negotiate at that particular point in time in her career. And do you know what I tell every woman from that point on? You better negotiate. Because even though it's a great increase for you in that season of your life, even though when you leave Wake Tech or while you're at Wake Tech, it'll be one of the best things, you'll be so excited and doing the Running Man just like I was, you don't want to have to chase your value. You don't want to have to prove your value to people. Value that you're earning right now at Wake Tech, value that you bring because you already have natural skills, gifts, and abilities. You don't want to have to prove that to people. So I am proud to say that at certain points of my career, when I did see things shifting, when I did see my responsibilities shifting, I said, you know what? My responsibilities have changed and my salary is this. Is there any way that we can take a look at it? And twice in my career, there were times when I had double-digit increases. Thankful for that, but had I not made the mistake at the very beginning, I would have been able to be at the same level as my peers the entire time. The biggest thing I can tell you for that lesson learned for me is ask. Is ask. The only thing that people can tell you is no. And that's okay. But if you never ask, you will never, ever know. It's okay for you to say, you know what? I appreciate the offer, but one of the things that I was expecting was X. Can we look at 70? Can we look at 75? Can we look at whatever that may be? It's okay. It's not the fact we're so scared that we're not going to get the job because we asked for more money. That's not going to happen. We're so scared that we're not going to get the benefits or get the job because we ask for more benefits, we ask for more stock options when we get to that level in our career. All of that stuff is coming for you guys, and it's okay to ask. So many people, because the organizations will tell you, oh, we only give out salary increases during merit review time. Yeah, if you don't ask, you will only get salary increases during merit review time, right? You have to learn to ask. When is the last time you stepped out of your box and you've asked? You may get the butterflies in your stomach. You may be sitting there thinking, nobody else is asking this. I don't care. People will always say, Melissa, you're so courageous. You're so this, you're so that. No. It's not that. It's just every moment of every day is a time for me to decide, am I going to stay here or am I going to take a step towards what I believe? Am I going to stay here or am I going to take a step towards what I feel is right for me? So I stayed in that particular position for probably about 8 years. And there were times, it was a pretty flat organization. And I'm a go-getter. I'm like, I want to move up. Somebody needs to create a position. Somebody needs to do something, right? And there would be times when I would get feedback because there were no positions. They had to come up with some reason to say, here's why we're not going to move you. And there would be times that I would get feedback about my performance, my leadership, things that were just said that I would say, okay. And I would walk away feeling so hurt, so discouraged, so just trying to figure out, I cannot believe that's the conversation that I just had because it didn't necessarily match up to the performance that I felt like I gave. And it would bother me probably no more than a day. After that day, do you know what I would do? I would have to remember exactly who I was. I would have to remember what I was called to do, which was even bigger than the role that I was trying to get there. And I would have to remember that I was created for so much more. So in the times when you get feedback, whether it's from a professor, whether it's from a boss, or anyone that it may be not the best feedback that you've ever received in your life, you take it. There's something in there for you, or you wouldn't have the conversation. But at the same time, you don't allow it to make you. You don't allow it to break you. You don't allow it to just sit you down that you don't ever try again. You have to get back up and keep going. You have to apply for the position again. It doesn't matter if people around you are being tapped on the shoulder for positions. If something comes up, you apply for it. Right? I want to be able to set you and put you in a position that way you leverage the women's network. So when you go out to pursue your dream job, you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made, that your mentors made, and that your professors made. Because there's so much that we've done and we've learned that you can learn from, that you can ask the questions about. So finally it got time for me to pursue my own business. I was ready. Even at one point, I quit my job because I was so ready. And then I said, okay, I take that back. I'm not quite ready yet. I did. My senior VP of HR had to remind me. He was like, you remember you quit one time, right? I was like, oh, yeah, I did do that. Yeah. But the things that I'm doing now had been burning inside me for so long. How many of you have something that's just been burning inside you for so long? You want to be in the medical industry, the legal field, the nursing field. You want to speak, whatever that is. There's something that you say, oh, gosh, whenever I get the opportunity. I remember I was sitting in my office, and I said, I just have to start. I just have to start. I wasn't exactly sure when I was going to transition, but I knew that I needed to start. So I set a date for my first women's event. And then I said, I'm not going to tell anybody. Because if you tell people, they're going to hold you accountable. Right. So then I said, okay, I'll tell my best friend. And sure enough, she said, all right, let's roll. So we had about 6 months to plan, and we started putting things together, started finding the ideal location, and she was my accountability partner for that experience. But I knew, even though I didn't have a transition date, that I needed to start. There's something that you've been thinking about, a class that you've been needing to take that you've been shying away from. There's a professor that you've been wanting to talk to that does what you do that you have not talked to yet. But I'm telling you today, you need to start. Success doesn't happen overnight. Leaders don't develop overnight. It's a day-by-day process. It's taking one risk after another risk after another risk. It will not be easy. I will not sugarcoat it and say, oh yeah, once you decide it, it's going to be great. That's a lie. But once you start, you'll get the courage to take the next step. So I started planning this first event. And then I said, you know what? I need to get some more experience and get certified in some things. So I went and I started saying, okay, I'm going to go and get affiliated with the John Maxwell team. I said, okay, we'll do that. And the woman at the time said, you can either attend a live event in August or in February. And I said, okay, well, it's June, so February will be most ideal for me. But do you know there was something on the inside that said, you need to be there in August. Hadn't planned for it, hadn't budgeted for it. So I said, okay, let's go. She called me back. I said, I need to be there in August. Can't tell you why, but I need to be there in August. Whenever you have that inkling of intuition, follow it. Follow it. Because the very day before I ended up flying to Orlando to be a part of the John Maxwell team, I unexpectedly ended up getting laid off from my job. Follow your intuition. Take the step. Start the process. Because when you start, everything else that happens in your life, it lines up. You will not miss a beat. You won't miss it. You won't miss it. Have the conversation. When that little voice says, you need to do so-and-so, you need to talk to so-and-so, don't put it to the side and keep playing on Facebook. I'm serious, y'all. When you know you need to send that email while you're watching Real Housewives of whatever city they're in and showing on, the network, pull out your phone, send the email, pull out your computer. Do it. The one thing that I talk about all the time and that I try to practice is I'm not afraid of failure, but I am afraid of regret. Because that feeling is horrible. That feeling is so horrible when you say, I wish I had. I wish I did. Now is your time. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but when you think about it, do it. Take action. Take action. So I get to the John Maxwell team. I'm so excited. And I get back and I'm ready to just launch and save the world. I did. But then I got back and it was so hard. And that's when I realized for myself that courage is a repetitive action. I thought that step for me was the biggest thing that I'd ever done. I thought that step for me, everything was going to be smooth sailing after that because I finally did it. I only thought about it for 15 years. So you mean to tell me after 15 years it's not going to be easy? Come on now, that was the biggest decision I made. But even after 15 years of thinking about what I'm doing now, I had to realize that every day it takes for me to pick up the phone to call someone, every email that it takes for me to send, every networking meeting that I have to go to, it takes courage. I get nervous. I get scared. But at the same time, I was talking with Ryan yesterday. She said, you just seem like you're just ready to take the mic. You just seem ready to go. You know what that is? It's not me not being nervous. It's me knowing that I have something bigger than me to do. Because it's not about me. It's about you. It's because I knew when I woke up this morning that there was going to be at least one person in here that needed to hear this message. Because by the end of the day, they're going to make a phone call, they're going to send an email, they're going to have a conversation that they've been putting off doing. I don't have time for nervousness. That's not what it's about. And that's the same thing with you, with majors in, with you want to be lawyers, doctors, in teachers, whatever your field of work is, there's somebody there that's waiting on you. There's a patient. There's someone that needs legal advice. There's a student that no other teacher will be able to reach but you. Someone is waiting on you. On you. I need you to stop thinking about and replaying what people have said over and over again. I need you to stop thinking about what people said that you wouldn't do. I need you to stop focusing on how hard it is now to even take these classes right here and try to figure out, you know that you're going to be something, do something once you get through with this. You are something right now. To figure it out. I get it. You're trying to take classes, trying to work. You got a family. You got to cook. You got to do laundry. I mean, we can go down the list. Go down the list. But you want to know the people who make it and that are successful with it? The ones that keep going. I remember, I think it was in February, I was at a low point, and I said, I just need to get to Florida to be with my peers so that I can get some encouragement with what I'm doing in my business. And I was sitting there listening to John Maxwell. If you don't know who he is, he's an amazing leadership guru, written a ton of leadership books. And he told an amazing story, and at the end of that story, he said, success will come if you don't give up. If you don't give up. And people look at me all the time and they say, Melissa, you're doing so awesome, you're doing so good. And I said, that's because I refuse to give up. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't care how many tears I have to shed. I don't care who says what. I don't care how bleak it gets. I have to go. You have to go. You have to go. Are you giving up? No, I didn't think you were. Are you giving up? No, I didn't think you were. Because the only way it will not work is if you give up. That's the only way. You stop, it stops. You give up, it doesn't work. I don't care how slow the process is. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care if you have to apply for the same job 5 times. The only way it won't work is if you give up. You want to know how I knew I needed to keep going? Because I was watching Oprah one day. I was, seriously. I was watching, I don't know, master's class. And it wasn't even the master's class that really got me that day. It was something that came on afterwards. And she had a 10-year anniversary show on. Where are they now? And there were previous guests talking from 2004 to 2014. And there was one woman who she was in the audience the day that she gave away cars. And she said, you get a car and you get a car. I'm not giving out cars, but that's what happened on the show. And she was giving out cars. And that woman in that moment, she said, this is exactly what I needed. She was an assistant principal, and she had started having some health issues. I believe she had lupus or something like that. And the doctor said, you need to do something different with your life. And she'd always had, something on the side dealing with cosmetics and soaps and things like that. And so she took her car, sold it, and used it as seed money to be able to transition from her career and build her business. She started it. And she had a storefront in whatever city that she lived in, but she knew she wanted to be in department stores. And you want to know what she did? She called Macy's every day for 2 years. Every day. Every day for 2 years. That's when I said, oh, there's no way you can give up, because I don't know of anybody that I've called every day for 2 years. And it's that level of perseverance, it's that level of persistence, it's that level of determination and dedication that you have to say, am I going to have that? Or am I going to have a complacent, passive life and give up on my dream? It's stories like that that encourage me. It's stories like that that make me realize I haven't done nearly enough to what I want to do to make me get to the point to say, I'm stopping here. I will not stop. You will not stop until you can say who you've called every day for 2 years. I know there's chuckles in the room, but I'm so serious, y'all. I'm so serious. I say complainers are the people that don't have the courage to take action and make change. So there's no way that you can complain about what you're going through unless you're willing to do something about it. Unless you're willing to do something about it. I'll tell you another good story. Yesterday, does anyone watch Shark Tank? Yep. Barbara, you know her? Yep. Do you know she wasn't supposed to be on the show? Heard that story? She was not supposed to be on the show. She was selected. And then he said, you know what? I found somebody else, so you don't need to come. That was her dream job. She had just transitioned from her career. She had just sold her business. And now she was about to enter into TV and Hollywood and had her ticket and everything. The one thing that she did, which most people would not, is she said, you need to bring both of us out there. So that way we can both interview. So that way we can both try out and you can see who's going to be the best fit for your show, for your concept, for the viewers. Most people would have taken his note, taken his call from his assistant, and went home and cried. And said, I thought this was my chance. That's what he would have did. You have to have that level of fight and determination in you that even when the answer is no, when the door is shut, when they say, no, not right now, you say, okay, well, tell me when. You have to have that. And so she did. And she wrote an email that said, here's all the reasons why you need to bring me out. Here's why I already have my ticket. I need to be on that plane on this Friday. And you see she's been on the show for seasons now. Seasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want you to know, I don't care if you're sitting around the table with people that have the same name as you, the same background as you, the same education as you, there is something that you have to add. If you don't leverage your voice, no one else will. No one else will. There have been times in my career that I've had plenty of opportunity to shrink back, where I walk into the room and I'm the only woman. I'm the only African American. I'm the youngest. I don't fit in. Everyone is married. I'm single. Everyone's been on the boat. I don't have a boat. You know? I don't fit in. And I can either realize and recognize at that moment who I am and that I've been called for a reason and purpose to do something major, in that whether you have 30 years experience to my 10 years experience, there's gifts that we both bring that when they get together can create something wonderful. When you realize that, You show up with a different swagger. You show up with your shoulders held back. You show up with your head held high. It's not conceited. It's not that you think that much of yourself. It's that you know you have something to add to that conversation. You have something to add to someone else. You have something to add that will make a difference. To make a difference. You have to think about why you're here. Why are you at Wake Tech? Why are you even at the mentoring program kickoff? What do you need to get out of it? Don't just come today and then don't leverage the resources. Don't just come today and don't leverage what meetings these ladies have been meeting for months just for you to say, how can we help these women succeed? Every time a thought comes in that says, I can't do it, you have to have a thought that says, yes, you can. I can't do it. Yes, you can. I can't do it. Yes, you can. I spend more time talking to myself, literally, because your mental mindset is the number one thing that will prevent you from moving forward. You can have all the money in the world. You can have all the education in the world. You can have the right circle of friends, but if you don't think that you can do it, it won't happen. I'm training for a marathon. I don't know why I decided that. I'll just be honest. I don't know why. And there comes to a certain point in time when you start to run further than you've ever ran. And I've done a couple of halves, so 13.1, done that. Those were a struggle. And so it got time for us to get to the 14-mile weekend, which is a few weekends ago. And I was so nervous that week. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Monday I was nervous. Tuesday I was nervous. Wednesday, Thursday. Finally Friday, I literally got in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror at myself and I said, Melissa, however you show up on that pavement tomorrow morning, that's the type of run you're going to have. If you show up feeling like, oh gosh, this is going to be so hard. Oh gosh, how am I ever going to do it? I can't do it. It's the furthest I've ever run. Then every mile, every step is going to be brutal. But if you show up saying, I got this. You got this, girl. Put on your sneakers, lace them up. It's going to be a good run. You might be on the pavement for a few hours because I'm a little slow. But you can do it. That's going to be the outcome. And so I started bouncing around in the mirror like, you got this, go ahead. Because that's what I have to do to get my mind ready. Anytime I'm coming up against something, whether it's a new client or whether when I was in corporate it was a new job, it was a big project. Do you know the first day on my job, my boss said, this was years ago, she said, you're going to do a team development session with the CIO and his team. I said, do what? With who? I was fresh out of grad school. She said, you are the expert. I said, this poor lady, bless her heart, she doesn't know who I am. But she said, you are the expert. You're the expert. It took me years to realize what she meant by that. And finally, I realized being the expert meant that I went in with the level of expertise, whatever your major is. If your major is, what's your major? Accounting. Yeah, you are the expert. You are the expert. But I need you to catch this. Because as an accounting major, you know way more about accounting than I ever will. So there comes a level of confidence that you have to have when you walk into a room or when you go to have meetings with people that says, I'm an accounting major. I've been studying this. I've been taking classes. Now, I get you want to have way more years experience and you're going to get that and you're going to achieve that and go on to get great jobs and things like that. I get that. But right now, with that particular field, to me, you're the expert. You can answer questions that I can't answer. And it took me years to realize that when it came to what I do, developing teams, leading people, I was the expert because they were IT people. No offense. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what they focused on. They were the experts in their field. I was the expert in mine. And once I finally got that, I was able to show up in a completely different way. And you can show up in a completely different way. So right now, I want you to think about the goal that you have, the dream that you have, the thing that keeps you up at night, that you say, gosh, I can't wait until I. And we're going to pretend like we're about how I was on that 14-mile run. And we're going to pretend like we're in the mirror, and we're going to get pumped up. So I need everybody to stand up. Stand up. Because I need to know how bad you want it. I need to know, because we're not going to live complacent lives. We're not going to live complacent lives. We're going to go after the thing that we want. We're going to make sure that we do everything we're supposed to do. We're not going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. So I need you to get that vision. What is it that you see yourself doing? 2014, 2015, 2016. Why are you at Wake Tech? Why are you in the mentoring program for women? Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here? What is it that you want to do next? What is it that you want to do next? First, you got to believe that it's possible. First, you got to believe that there's nothing that can stand in your way. There's no resources. There's no family issue. There's no time issue. There are no barriers. It can happen. You are the only one that can stand in your way. Not anyone else. Not what anyone else has said or done. It's not what the school has done. It's not what your parents have said. It's not what your brother and sister, your friends. You. With you being the main catalyst, I need you to know that you can win. You can win. And in order to win, you have to be willing to do what other people won't. That's not just a cliche. That's not just a saying. And until you're ready to do what other people won't, until you're ready to balance your life and plan out your meals for the whole week so that way you can have your study time and you're not cooking every single night, to make sure all the clothes are laid out for the week so that way you're not having to iron and figure out what the whole family is wearing the next day. If it takes those, if you spend your weekend doing that, so that way you can on the weekday go to school, go to work, come home, put the kids in bed and do your homework, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. All it is discipline. And until you have the discipline, you'll continue to struggle. And that's not what we're going to do. So now that you have the dream, I need you to repeat after me. I will not shrink back.
I will not shrink back.
I will not walk in fear.
I will not walk in fear.
I will not let my past hinder me.
I will not let my past hinder me.
I will not quit.
I will not quit.
I will not live a passive life.
I will not live a passive life.
I will desperately fight for my dream.
I will desperately fight for my dream.
I will surround myself around dreamers,
I will surround myself around dreamers,
risk takers, and go-getters.
and go-getters.
I will practice courage every single day,
I will practice courage every single day,
no matter how hard it is.
no matter how hard it is.
Rejection will not kill me
Rejection will not kill me,
because I promise to try again.
because I promise to try again.
I was born for a purpose.
I was born for a purpose.
I'm at Wake Tech for a reason.
Wake Tech for a reason.
I use my time wisely.
I use my time wisely.
I will guard my mind against negative thinking.
I will guard my mind against negative thinking.
I will always remember
I will always remember
that I can do anything.
that I can do anything.
No one is better than me.
No one is better than me.
Because I'm the only me. I need y'all to catch that. I need y'all to catch that. I need y'all to catch that. You're the only you. No one is better than you. No one is better than you. No one is better than you. You are the only you. You have gifts, skills, talents, abilities that I don't have. You are the only one. I am confident.
I am confident.
I am courageous.
I am courageous.
I will win.
I will win.
All right. Thank you, guys.